Hello and welcome back to A Drunk History of Middle-earth. This is a show where we take the legendarium created by J.R.R. Tolkien and have a good, simple, wholesome chat about it. Sometimes it's a drunk person, me, trying to explain stories or events, and sometimes it's breaking down the stories and concepts as if we're talking to a drunk person. I'm Chris, I'm an avid Tolkien nerd, I'm still learning and realising how much I actually don't know. And joining me is your co-host and my lovely wife Rebecca. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm Rebecca, a complete novice to all things Tolkien and nerdy in general. Although now I've watched all 3 films, extended editions, and can now confirm that I have been converted to the religion headed by L. Ron Tubbard.
Long may he live. Right.
Zoltan.
That's the intro sorted. Let's get into today's episode.
Hello. Hi, Becca. How are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
It was a bit of a chipper. That was a bit of a chipper intro from me. Like I haven't been talking to you all day already. Like, it's like we're just meeting again for the first time today.
I feel like that's what it's been like for the past year. Actually, when we get to spend time with each other.
Like ships in the night kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, well, you know, we know some people who don't. Anyway, how's your week been? How's it good? How's it been?
Good. Working from home for a change.
Yeah, it's been nice having you around this week actually.
It's been like COVID times, which has just been COVID for me was absolutely fantastic. Had loads of time at home with you.
Yeah. Weirdly, we've both had COVID a couple of times, but it was amazing for the amount of time we got to spend together. That was nice. Anyway, got a lot to cover this week. Fuck me, I'd forgot how long Return of the King was.
Well, for me, it felt like it wasn't long enough.
Well, yeah, you really like this one, didn't you? Like,
yeah, it was the first one that ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, so it was like when we watched it, you were like, "What? No, I've got to wait till next week."
It was a definite cliffhanger. It wasn't like the others that they do like a mix of random scenes and.
Well, yeah, it's like it's like I said at the end of last week. Like the stage is set now,
yeah,
and we're seeing the final act. But yeah, so can I gather from that you've got positive views of Return of the King Part 1?
Yeah.
Wicked, right, we'll get into it. Like I said, lot to cover this week.
Yeah.
So shall we just jump straight into the film?
Yeah, let's do it.
This one was great. So this film starts with Deagle and Smeagol out on the water. Important thing to note is that Deagle and Smeagol are akin to the Hobbits. Like, they're not precisely the same. They're more like very close relatives because there's a few different types.
By the water.
Well, yeah, there's a few different types of hobbits, and these are the river folk. They're much more comfortable in the water, and you see them fishing in the River Anduin. Deagle has some cracking CGI when he falls into the water, and you see when Johnny gets pulled along by the fish.
Yeah,
that is amazing. But he finds something shiny and yellow in the water. It's the One Ring, which he becomes enamoured with very quickly when
you sound like such a child saying shiny and yellow, like as if you've only got, like, in your box of crayons, you don't have a crayon that's gold. So anything that's any remote colour near yellow, that's what the crayon you'll use, yellow.
Yeah, yellow.
Shiny and gold.
Whatever. But yeah, he finds the ring. Unfortunately, whilst Deagle is enamoured with it, so is Smeagol, and it's Smeagol's birthday. He asks Deagle for the ring, and Deagle. So in the books, Deagle says something along the lines of like, "I've already given you more than I can afford." Is it in the books? I think somewhere. Anyway, I read somewhere that Deagle's already says to Gollum, like, "I've given you more than I can afford," which.
So he's really treating him on his birthday.
Yeah, it kind of insinuates like Smeagol already asked him what. But yeah, then they start fighting. Now, what I didn't notice, right? Did you know? So Smeagol eventually kills Deagle, right? He strangles him. But did you notice that Deagle looked like he was going to kill Smeagol first?
No, I didn't notice.
See, I didn't pick that up until this time. Yeah, Deagle starts strangling Smeagol before he gets the upper hand, and then he kills him. I think it's his cousin, but he kills him, and then he gets. We see Smeagol. Yeah, and we see it flashing. Smeagol becomes Gollum. When I bet Andy Serkis had a whale of a time doing all this makeup and that. Because that's Andy Serkis, because Andy Serkis in The Lord of the Rings plays so many different characters. Like, he's Gollum, I think he's Sauron, I definitely know he's Smaug, whatever you want to call it. and I think he plays something else as well. But here he just gets to be him wearing braces and breeches, which it must have been lovely. But yeah, I love the quote from Gollum: "Is we forgot the taste of bread, the sound of trees, the softness of the wind. We even forgot our own name," which is so that's pretty dire, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it must be in the books that I remember reading this, because Smeagol's grandmother is the one that kicks him out because he uses the ring around his family, and he becomes like shittier and shittier and shittier. Like he's spying on people, he's stealing things, and eventually his grandmother, who's the matriarch of like the clan of Hob River folk, eventually just kicks him out, she exiles him, because he never tells anyone what happened to Deagle, and it just says that he went missing or that he just fell off the boat or something. So yeah, he's a dickhead. But we see perhaps. Again, we a lot of narrative device, but we see Frodo becoming more obsessed with the ring. The days are growing darker. Do you know where Frodo thinks he slept too long?
Yeah, they eventually get the point where there's no light.
It's getting pretty depressing. The closer to Mordor they get, it's like everything's dark and dreary. Did you notice that there was the eruptions from Mount Doom as well, like starting to shake things?
I didn't notice that.
No, all right, okay. Yeah.
I obviously was like picking different things to you.
Yeah, true.
But I suppose you've watched it so many times.
Someone made a comment the other week that I seem to be obsessed with Sam Gamgee, and I don't disagree. I love Samwise. Because good old Samwise here gives Frodo some lembas bread for breakfast. Bless his heart. He says he won't have any, and it turns out that he's trying to ration it.
Yeah.
Because he thinks there's going to be a return journey. That's some optimism, that, right?
I just think, like, I wish he lived in our house. Because when, like, things you're like, oh, I'm just exhausted, he would be like, come on, cheer up, let's get out of here.
Could you imagine his tidy up songs?
Yeah, they would be amazing.
Like, he's a gardener by trade as well, so he'd make poo picking after the dog enjoyable.
Yeah,
like,
I just...
Come on, Mr. Chris, Mrs. Becca, throw that big pile of shit as far as you can into next door.
Yeah,
I've heard they're right bastards.
He's a lovely character, and he's got like the purest of intentions. But obviously, Frodo doesn't see that while he's under control of the ring, and Gollum being sneaky.
Gollum is a bastard in this film. Like, you could see how much of a bastard he is. Where he's getting worse. Like, you can see blatant. What to us, the audience, and Sam, it's blatant how much he's manipulating Frodo.
Yeah, because we've switched between like thinking, oh, poor Smeagol, to now he's like just let it take a hold of him.
Yeah,
I feel like there's still, like, deep down, there's still a bit of hope.
Well, as Gandalf would say, that not even the wise could see all ends, and his heart told him that Gollum would have a part to play before the end. So, who knows? We're not at the end yet. So,
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. But after we get away from Samwise the Absolute Sweetheart, we go back to Theoden, Aragorn, etc. They're heading to the conquered Isengard, where... After the battle at Amon Hen and the parting of the ways, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli finally catch up with Merry and Pippin.
Who were high as kites.
Yeah, they're just having a great old time, aren't they?
Scranning. Bit of the munchies.
Gimli is just furious until but then he kind of loses steam when one of them mentions that the salted pork is particularly good. Which fair dues, like, I can imagine that'd be us straight away. Like, I've chased after you for days and days, you absolute shit. What's that you've got there?
Yeah.
That looks nice.
Especially when you've not really eaten very well.
Oh yeah, Gimli will have been on like lembas bread and maybe a couple of meals here and there at like Meadowseld and on the march to Helm's Deep. Well, no, on the march to Helm's Deep he was having to eat Eowyn's terrible stew.
Yeah, exactly. So
I could see how salted pork would be
how salty he would be over salted pork.
So when they say salted pork, right, it just in my head, this is my canon, I don't think of the actual meat, I just think of the crackling.
I just think of pepperoni.
Oh shit,
like cured meat, isn't it?
Is it like, oh right.
Well, if it's salted,
aye,
it's been salted to cure it.
Aye, but fair dues, yeah. But Merry and Pippin have been put there to greet the visitors. And when Gandalf meets Treebeard, they all meet Treebeard, but it really puts it in perspective for me how old Treebeard is when he calls Gandalf a young master, which is just like that. Have you seen that gif of that bloke in the turtleneck sweater just going like with an exploding head, like he puts his hands near his head, it's like an exploding head meme kind of thing. Because Gandalf at this point has been in Middle Earth for around 1100 years, I think, or 2000. No, I think he got there in like the year 1000 or 1100 of the Third Age. So he's been he's been around.
1000.
He's been around for around 2000 years. He's an old man. And before that, he's a Maiar who's millions or however many years old that since the dawn of creation. And then you've got Treebeard, who is literally as old as the trees in Middle Earth, calling him young master. So it's just like head explodey kind of mean. So I've been prepping you for weeks about this and talking about Saruman and talking about how dangerous Saruman is and that his power is words, right?
Yeah.
Now, so what were your thoughts then when you saw him start to speak to Theoden and Gandalf and Aragorn and that, and you saw Saruman's power in action? Like, frankly, it scares me, the idea of that kind of power.
It was pretty cool how we didn't need some sort of megaphone or intercom system.
Yeah, he was stood at the top of Orthanc, wasn't he? Just shouting down.
Shouting away like a mad bastard. And like he just shows no sort of remorse whatsoever when Theoden is talking about like the kids and women and innocent people who've been killed. He just does not care. Even when he's got nothing left, he doesn't care. And then that crazy guy goes to stab him.
Oh, Grima Wormtongue.
And then he gets shot with an arrow by Legolas, which I just didn't understand that bit.
Yeah, so again, that's that's pretty much the whole that's like a bit of the whole scene. It's a massive departure from the book. In the book, Saruman and Grima don't die here. They don't die until well past the end of Return of the King. They die in the Shire, and they take over the Shire and turn it into like a hellhole, basically. But yeah, we see that Saruman starts speaking. Every word is an enchantment, but unfortunately, he's got three. Well, he's got like Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, Theoden, Gandalf. Like, you've got two kings, a wizard, an elf prince, and a fucking dwarf. Like, they are some of the strongest, because especially with dwarves, like, dwarves are described, I think, as like stone files or metal file. They will break, but they don't bend. Like, it's very hard to bend a dwarf to your will. Sauron had no luck with it. So yeah, dwarfs' wills are not to be messed with. But Saruman still tried, bless him, but didn't do very well. I've got you've already pointed to it that Theoden says about like you'll pay for the crimes of women and children, say that you'll hang from the gibbets and stuff. I've just got here that he's got some fantastic dialogue, and I think Theoden's speeches in general are second only to one particular speech that's made by Aragorn in the next bit that we're going to watch, the last part of the film. That's because Aragorn, that bit for Aragorn is the one that trumps all speeches across Lord of the Rings. But Theoden, he's up there where like a charismatic king. He's fucking great.
Like, that's what our country needs. Yeah,
pretty much like Theoden or an Aragorn, yeah. There's some back and forth, and Saruman, like, again, this is the enchantment. He's trying to plant the seeds of doubt by saying that Gandalf have been power hungry. And he says something like, so I hand you the keys to Orthanc, as well as the crowns of the Seven Kings and the rods of the Five Wizards. Bit of a nerdy aside here. There is some debate amongst Tolkien fans about that phrase, the Seven Kings. It could be referring to the dwarves. It could just be referring to technically seven kings of Rohan between Saruman getting the keys to Orthanc and Theoden. But that
wasn't the seven of those black.
No, there's not. There's nine. Nazgul, yeah. Because technically, that if you count the kings between Saruman getting to Orthanc and Theoden, that would be one crown on seven heads, so it wouldn't be seven crowns. The dwarves, wouldn't make sense. So there's some debate. It might just be a number he chucks out there, but there is also 7 Palantirs that were lost on Middle-earth as well, but we'll come to them later. But the rods of the 5 wizards, easy to understand. There's 5 wizards that came to Middle-earth. Saruman's already fucked it. Gandalf stays true to his cause till the end. Radagast is off fucking eating mushrooms in the woods somewhere. And the 2 blue wizards have gone to the east. Might be successful in their mission, might not be. So those are the 5 wizards accounted for. It's just a little interesting tidbit of it's...
Is he not kind of like jealous of Gandalf's position at this point, though?
He doesn't really understand the magnitude of what happened until Gandalf breaks his staff.
Yeah.
Which he does after... So Saruman fires a fucking fireball at Gandalf.
Yeah,
which,
and Shadowfax.
Oh, and Shadow. Yeah, then Gandalf just absolutely no-sells it. He casts shield at first level. Just no chat. My only conclusion is that Saruman cast Firebolt, because if he cast Fireball, it would have been an area of effect, and it would have been, and that's at least a 3rd level spell. So I personally think that was Firebolt, a cantrip, instead of a leveled spell. But that's just me being a nerd. But then Gandalf, after giving him chance after chance, saying, you know, like, we can still reason with you. Oh, pardon me. Saying we can still reason with you. He kicks him out of the Order. Because Gandalf now has the authority to do that as Gandalf the White, the head of the Order, and breaks his staff. Theoden, which incredibly merciful for a king, it appeals to Grima one last time and says, you don't need to follow Saruman. And then Saruman, like, I couldn't believe this bit when he starts talking mad shit about everybody and he fucking bitch slaps Grima. Like, the thing is, Grima's not said a word the entire scene, has he? He hasn't said a word the entire time, and then he stood behind him and he just turns around and slaps him.
He's a faithful Labrador.
God, I was just like, oh, Saruman, you wanker. I want to point out a slight difference is in the Two Towers, when Grima gets kicked out of Meadowseld after Theoden comes back to being himself.
Yeah.
He goes to kill Grima and Aragorn stops him. In the book, that's slightly differently. Theoden says to Grima, he doesn't try and kill him, he says to Grima, take a horse and either ride with the army or ride to Saruman, and by your choice you will show your loyalties. Again, just that kingly wisdom. And Grima goes to Saruman. But I just wanted to point out that even though Theoden here, he appeals to him saying, you don't need to follow Saruman, it's still broadly the same with how he treats him in the book. It's just the order of events is different.
Yeah.
I prefer the book version, because he's saying, you're not going to, do what you will, man, but you can redeem yourself. And, he doesn't. But yeah, where he bitch slaps Grima just gets up and stabs Saruman in the back. And then Legolas shoots. I don't know why he does that, but he does it.
Yeah, it made no sense to me. I didn't know that you could enlighten me on that.
No,
I was just like, what? I'm so confused. What has he actually done wrong at this point? Because they're talking about how they want... I mean, they do obviously want information from Saruman. But at that point, you're not going to get a lot.
Yeah, and he says... So Gandalf says, tell us all you know. And he says, if everyone withdraws except you, I'll talk to you. So it looks like he's going to talk to Gandalf, but my big guess was he'd try and lie to him anyway, try and wiggle his way out of it. But before he can do any of that, Grima stabs him, and then Legolas unilaterally just decides, oh my god, he's coming right for us! Shoots him with his arrow. Fuck knows. I did want to mention that when Saruman gets stabbed in the back, and you hear just like a like that, just like the air expelling from his lungs. Peter Jackson had said to Christopher Lee while they were shooting this, "Why, I want you to scream." And Christopher Lee was in the special forces in the British Army, and he'd said to him that's not what happens when you stab a man in the back. He doesn't scream; all the breath leaves his lungs. And it was just everyone on set was just kind of fucking hell, yeah. Well, it was just more fucking hell, because Christopher Lee did it all, before he died. That guy is an absolute legend. He was in the special forces. he was in a death metal band or like a metal band for yonks. And then, so Johnny falls onto the spike and they go under the water. That was just Christopher Lee strapped to a harness.
I was going to say, did he do his own stunt?
Yeah, he did for that. So, right, Christopher Lee was strapped to a harness and there was a diver under the water ready to give him air every time. And they had to do it like a few times. But Christopher Lee was just like, fuck, he was like a hobnob, you know, like that Peter Kay joke. He was like, dunk me.
Dunk the Lee. Dunk the Lee.
Yeah. He was a Dairy Lee dunker. When Saruman drops down, he drops a shiny bauble into the water. And I was just saying to you before we started recording, because I was reading The Hobbit, like, what on earth is it with the people in the like Middle Earth, Beleriand, Arda, the world of Arda? What is it that God crossbred them with fucking magpies? That shiny baubles cause so much shit. You've got the Silmarils, the Palantir, the Ring, the One Ring, the Lesser Rings, the Arkenstone. All of these things, all these shiny things, everyone's like, oh, I've got to have that. I'll kill anybody for that. It's like...
Well, Pippin really has his eye on it, doesn't he?
Yeah. He becomes a div.
He's still a div. I don't think he's redeemed himself.
Yeah, but just to give you a bit of background, that stone is called the Palantir. And the plural of Palantir is Palantiri. There were 7 of them in Middle-earth, and one by one they were lost until only there was a couple left. But the total number of Palantir isn't known, and they were probably made by Fëanor, who made the Silmarils, which caused so much trouble in like the first age of Middle-earth. But only 7 were brought to Middle-earth. And what they do is they allow you to see far. Like you can communicate with other people who have the stones. So you like massive cross distance, so you can communicate mentally with someone. But if your will is strong enough, you can look anywhere, including into the past. So very, very useful. But one by one over the years, they were lost. I think one was definitely lost in the sea.
One was lost down the back of the sofa.
One's down the back of the sofa at Amon's Weathertop, which nobody wants to. It's just Amon Sul. Nobody wants to admit
Someone's
that.
kid hid the other one.
Yeah. One's in the cupboard inside all the carrier bags from supermarkets, and it's just it's a hassle. It's a hassle to get it all out and look at it.
Feel personally attacked.
I think everybody in Britain has got, if not a cupboard, then a drawer where all your bags inside other bags go.
Yeah, I keep giving them away and I still seem to have hundreds.
Yeah, we do. It's ridiculous. But then we see, so Gandalf and that obviously go back to Meduseld in Edoras. And Theoden toasts to the losses at Helm's Deep, and he hails the victorious dead, which is touching. Legolas and Gimli have a little drinking competition, and I love Gimli's dirty laugh. What is it? It's like a little celebration feast. It's a little bit subdued, and Aragorn, Eowyn tries to get Aragorn again with his goblet.
Honestly, she's
fucking
just...
give it up, woman.
She's known from the very, very, very beginning that pretty much of meeting him. And it's obviously the challenge. She obviously likes the challenge.
The thing is, like, even Theoden says, like, I'm happy for you. He's a good man. I think, honestly, this is just Peter Jackson trying to crank, or like executives making the film, just wanting to crank it up a little bit, like give it like a little love triangle, inject a love triangle into it when it's not really there.
It's not necessary.
No, it's not. We see that Legolas and Gimli are drinking so much that Gimli passes out.
And Legolas
has a little tingle.
Tingle in his fingers.
Because a little tingle. Which, the writings of Professor Tolkien obviously have kept me occupied for yonks, right? This whole podcast is about the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. But I will say this. That man has a hard-on for elves. He really fucking does. I would love if the Silmarillion, that is the history of the elves and Middle, all of that stuff as well. I want one about the dwarves. It's never going to happen because he's dead and his son's dead as well. But that would have been the ideal for me. It's like a history of the world of dwarves coming into play, because I just love dwarves. It's my jam. It's very much my jam. We see Merry and Pippi, fucking hell, I keep saying it. Merry and Pippi are dancing on the tables, and then we see that Pippin's just staring at Gandalf because he knows he's got the Palantir, like, still playing on his mind, so he's being an absolute div. But yeah, we leave them, and then we see that Smeagol's having a crisis of confidence, bit of a talk to Gollum, and he was talking about leading them to the stairs and the tunnels.
Yeah, to feed her.
To feed her. Do you know who her is yet?
I think it's a big spider.
Yeah, Shelob. Yeah,
Am I right?
Yeah, Shelob.
Why?
Who is a descendant of Ungoliant.
Well, I thought that from the last film as well we watched.
Yeah,
when they referred to it, I thought, oh, I wonder whether that's that spider.
Yeah, see?
So, my memory's not that bad.
It's not, and you're learning as well, like, you're learning loads, so it's not a case of just remembering things, it's like, I think you like, what we've seen over the last, like, 5 weeks now, is that you are, like, things are sinking in, right? Like, you are genuinely learning loads, which is awesome, to be fair. But Sam hears him and wakes up, right? Which isn't surprising, because at one point Gollum starts fucking shrieking. Like, there's only I don't understand. Like, there's only them three there in the wilderness walking through, and then you've got Gollum, who's meant to be a sneaky little sneaker, just stood in front of a puddle going, ah! Talking to himself.
I don't understand why Frodo. There's loads of scenes where Frodo can't sleep, but he's always asleep when Gollum has these moments, and stays asleep.
Oh no.
Why? I don't get it.
Oh no, it's so weird. It's so weird. But Sam hears him and wakes up and punches fuck out of him because he's been a sneaky little sneaker. And they're talking about Smeagol saying, like, oh, we can't murder him, and then Gollum says, we've done it before. And it's like, he's talking about Deagle, but for the film, that confused and annoyed the nerd in me, because Gollum is a confirmed, like, cannibal, and he's literally eating babies. Like, in the Lord of the Rings book, the elves say that there's a terror in Mirkwood, like, or like around Mirkwood, I think it is, that steals babies from cradles and, like, eats them. It's fucking Gollum. Like, they're talking about Gollum. Like, so he's talking about, like, oh, I killed my cousin that one time, and let's not forget that in The Hobbit, he was planning to kill and eat Bilbo. So, and then he's just saying, like, oh, well, I've killed once before, like, my cousin. It's like, what the fuck? Like, no, he's eating babies.
I've killed that category of thing before.
It's just so bizarre, like, it's just, yeah, yeah. It'd be like if you have a conversation with Hitler and he'd be like, yeah, I really regret that time that I forced Eva Braun to kill herself. You know, like, you're like, right, technically you're not wrong, but, you know, it's such a weird thing to stick on. But Frodo, I've wrote in my notes here that Frodo pulls in. You might be able to tell I'm getting tired of Frodo at this point.
I've been tired of him since day one.
Because him and Sam are like arguing about, like, saying he's sneaking, and Frodo's like, we need him around, we need him to guide us. And I've just got as my note, Frodo pulls an absolute shit move by keeping Gollum around. What a turd. And then I just move on to the next scene.
I think it's because Frodo's not a main character.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, he's meant, like, you know, when there's someone who's meant to be the main character.
Like Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah.
Where they are the blandest fucking people in that programme.
It's like that when actually all the people around them are the highlight.
I remember reading
they just kind of keep the story going.
I do remember reading, it was related to Lord of the Rings. It was quite an in-depth one as well, and someone was, I can't remember where it was, but someone had written, you need bland main characters with these breakout side characters, because if the interesting side character was the main character, there would be no challenge. It's something like the Superman effect. Like, there'd be no challenge, and it's very hard to have a story with stakes. So if Legolas was the ring bearer, for example, and he was as resilient to the ring as Frodo is, The book would be
It
about.
wouldn't make a story.
Yeah, it wouldn't make a great story because it was like
He would run there because he's dead fast.
exactly. He'd run there. He wouldn't leave a trace anywhere.
He's so light on his feet.
In the books, by the way, we missed this out, but in the Fellowship of the Ring, in the book, in the darkness on the rivers of the banks of the River Anduin, Legolas is on watch, and in the dark he shoots and kills one of the fell beasts that the Nazgul rides.
So easy.
Yeah, exactly. So like, and it's like.
Why is he appeasing these people?
Yeah, so it's just that kind of thing. Like someone had pointed out that if you had these main characters as the main characters, it's very hard to construct a story around.
And as well, Legolas has been to get Smeagol, hasn't he?
No, Aragorn captured him, but Legolas was telling them that he'd escaped from Mirkwood.
Yeah. So Aragorn has already been that far.
Aragorn's been all over the place. He's a ranger. Yeah, he knows Middle-earth
for
really
him,
well.
it's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Gimli, well.
Yeah, so if you had like Gimli or like if you had Legolas in particular, because this was the specific example, if you had them as the main character, it wouldn't be nearly as compelling of a story. So whilst I think Gavin and Stacey are the blandest characters in that show, I think James Corden and Ruth Jones wrote it. Is it Ruth Jones who plays Nessa?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they wrote it specifically that way because you need a flawed kind of bland. I think in an ensemble, especially, you need kind of like a bland character to keep it going, who's flawed and
Yeah,
who
because
has
they're going to
challenges.
make mistakes.
Exactly, but also to make the characters around them shine. Like the Frodo's a wallflower, right? Is that the term where you get like ugly people to hold flowers and then paint them? Is that what it is? Isn't there that thing where like they used to get ugly people to hold flowers so the flowers look nicer?
I've never heard of that in my life.
Right, it is a thing. It is a thing. But it's essentially that is you make everyone else look cool. Like, you know,
He fluffs everyone up.
Yeah,
he's the fluffer.
He's the fluffer. Right? Would I be as in love with Samwise as I am if Frodo wasn't there? Because Frodo being a shit at times, it brings out the better parts of Samwise. Sam's the flowers, Frodo's the ugly person. I will look that up. But anyway, we go back to Meadowseld, and my only question is, why the fuck is Eowyn asleep in the middle of that big hall? It's
my logic was, she's a woman, and we're always cold, and she's wanted to sleep by the fire. And also, probably being a woman, she wouldn't be able to sleep in the same hall as the men.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Just, I honestly think that scene was just again for
Just
Peter Jackson.
Crap.
Yeah, just like he's covering up her foot.
Yeah, it makes it at first their interaction, and especially with the scenes with Arwen.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, is Arwen gonna leave? And then she's gonna be almost like his human person. You know how you can have many fates.
Oh yeah.
There's many people out. There's plenty of fish in the sea, type of thing.
Yeah.
She's gone, and then they this is his human.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it might have
many paths.
Aye. So it might have ended with
That's how it felt, the way that they've portrayed it.
Oh, okay.
But then at this point, I'm like, we know it's clear that he absolutely
Aragorn don't
is
want
loyal.
Aragorn don't want no ear wussy.
He wants a Marwussy.
He wants our wussy. He wants that elf wussy.
Oh.
Or no, she's part of the Eldar folks with that Eldersy. Anyway, moving on. The main part of this scene, or this part of the film, is to show that Pippin is again still obsessed with the Palantir and steals it away from Gandalf, who sleeps with his eyes open. Fuck knows what that's all about. Again, but he grabs the Palantir and Sauron sees him. Now, I really do feel bad for Pippin here because Sauron is cruel, and I have the feeling that in the movie universe, if Gandalf hadn't have been there to heal Pippin or whatever he does to him, that might have been his mind destroyed, because it's pointed out lots of times that not many can contest with the will of Sauron, not many at all. But Pippin sees from Sauron that he's going to attack Minas Tirith, i.e. Gondor's is the war has already started, but the main battles are coming, and Minas Tirith is in danger. We also find out that Pippin tells Sauron nothing, but Sauron gleans from this that there's a halfling with Gandalf, with the company, and that Aragorn's there, and that the strength of men still endures. So, like, Sauron had almost written off men in general, not like just got out of a bad relationship. I'm gonna work on myself. No more Edain for me. No more Edain for Myron. No, it was just more
celebrating Galentine's.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got the Witch King coming around and we're going to do Galentine's. But he sees that the strength of men still endures, so it might give him pause, or basically that he needs to throw more of his strength at men because they're still putting up a resistance. But to protect Gondor, Gandalf sets off. Theoden is reluctant to offer aid because, and quite, well, kind of rightly, kind of wrongly. I mean, what did you think? Theoden seemed quite hesitant to offer aid because Gondor didn't come to their aid at Helm's Deep. So what would you have done in Theoden's position?
Well, so at this point, Theoden understands that the whole of Middle-earth is at stake here. So you would think he would just go. Because if he doesn't go, then it's inevitable that he'd be next, and then there'd be nobody in Gondor to help him again, because they'd be wiped out. So he's got no choice, really. It sounds really petty. Yeah,
no, fair dues, yeah. Aragorn wants to go instead. He offers to go, but Gandalf tells him, like prophetically, or maybe just some good sound advice, that Aragorn needs to come to Gondor by the river road, and he needs to seek the black ships of Umbar. It's more expanded in the books, like the Corsairs and like the black ships and that. They are much more expanded on, but basically the main gist is, if those ships of Corsairs, which you see later in the film, do you know when they get on the other side of the mountain? If they get to Gondor and join the fight on the side of the enemy, Gondor is fucked. Unequivocally fucked. So Gandalf says, you need to go that way. We see Gandalf's getting ready to set off, and Pippin, the div, doesn't seem to understand the magnitude, right, of what he's done or what is happening. But there is a touching moment because Merry gives him some extra long bottom leaf, which is like the tobacco. Says that you always smoke too much, which is nice as they set off. I love hobbits. I do. As much as Pippin's a div, like I do just love their friendship and that. But we also see that, and as I think Merry pointed out, this is the first time they've been apart for ages, and he's worried because he's usually there to pull Pippin away from trouble that he gets himself into.
Yeah.
But we also see that they're now, by the end of this, they're tied to two different nations. Merry is a squire of... he's in the service of Rohan, and then Pippin becomes a part of the palace guard of Gondor, which is very unusual for hobbits, considering how Bilbo Baggins was shunned after his adventures. So these two are becoming the most famousest among hobbits. And good scene for you, I bet, when you see Shadowfax. He indeed does show them the meaning of haste as he belts off towards towards Minas Tirith.
Yeah. Goes winding round and...
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't it be cool to go on a horse like that? Like
just gorgeous.
A legendary horse. But what did you make of the next scene, which is, when Arwen's going to the Grey Havens and she sees that kid and then decides to run back?
It makes sense, because obviously it's already been like the forefront of her mind that she wants to stay. And it's been like a father's had laid on thick for her to leave, but then has said there's nothing here for you. So then obviously when she sees that she actually has the potential of having a child, of course she's going to turn back because there is something that will come from staying.
Yeah,
Instead of just fearing seeing someone you love die.
Yeah, she sees her and Aragorn's son. She sees Eldarion. That's who their son is. That's what their son's called, Eldarion. But this is the point for Arwen now. She has chosen a mortal life, so she the light of the Valar leaves her. And she says, "And there's now no ship that will bear me." So I'm going to go a little bit nerdier here for a second.
For a change.
Do you remember me saying that Elrond's called Elrond half-elven because him and his brother got to choose, and his brother Elros chose to be a man, the king of Númenor, right? And I said Elrond chose to be an elf. What I didn't mention is Elrond's kids got a choice as well. So everybody of Elrond's line has like a weird power where they can choose to live as an elf or they can choose to be mortal.
Yeah.
Arwen has effectively now chosen to be mortal, and now that she's categorically rejected the life of the Eldar, she can't go to Valinor anymore. So she now is tied to Middle Earth, and we see that when she's talking to Elrond, he says your hands are cold. It's because it's ramped up and made much more dramatic for the films because it has to be.
Yeah.
That's her. She's chosen a mortal life now. Her decision is made. She can't go to Valinor now. She's rejected the call, and she said, "No, my fate is here with Aragorn." Which we'll come on to a bit more about that in a while. But my favourite part of the film is I was whooping and hollering when they reforged Narsil, the shards of Narsil. So the sword of Elendil is reforged into Andúril, Flame of the West, a copy of which hangs in my home office, and I love it so much. And it hangs on the sword mount that I put up off-centre because I didn't know how to measure it properly.
No, it's off-centre and it's also not level.
That's the one, yeah. But hasn't fell on me, so it's fine. Well, I love that. Do you know what's always weird as well? I always thought it was Elrond who reforged it, and it's not just two fucking random elves.
Well, no, it's not random elves. They clearly work in the forge.
No, they're elven smiths, right? They're obviously they're top of their game. But
I mean, you can't expect Elrond to do everything.
No, Elrond's not. He's not even a super crafter or anything. It's just thematically, I thought it was an odd choice that
more romantic.
I thought that Peter Jackson would have for people the
He's
shit.
not going to sweat though, is
Yeah,
he?
the shit munchers like you who don't know anything about the books, the plebs, the peasants, right? You wouldn't have thought anything of just seeing fucking Hugo Weaving smashing a sword back together. You'd have been like, all right, it's sound, yeah, great. To just have two elven smiths it seems a weird little.
No, because he's not going to. That's not his job. It would be like seeing, God rest her soul, the Queen. It would be like seeing the Queen pouring a cup of tea.
I always said one thing that would restore my faith in the monarchy would be seeing the Queen leading...
Forging a sword?
No, leading a charge into battle on a horse.
She would?
I would...
I would totally...
If we had a monarchy that did things other than protect paedophiles and instead or sell their stories to tabloids despite saying they want to be left alone and actually went into battle on behalf of their country, I'd be fucking in the army in a second. Oh yeah. Well,
he's not a proper politician though, is he? Because his background is not
good. I've said for ages. I don't think career politician should be a thing. I think it's not autocracy. It's not Pluto. I think it's called a technocracy, where people who are experts in the thing are people who are at the top of their field are the ones who make the policies about that field.
Yeah.
So you'd have a bus driver in charge of the Department for Transportation.
Yeah.
Or something
someone who's practically
someone who does the fucking job. There was a politician in Japan who was very proud about the fact he'd never touched a computer. He was responsible for all their cybersecurity policies. Yeah, I know. So career politician get fucked. Anyway,
Yeah, so you're not going to catch Elron
L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah.
Hubbard
L. Ron Hubbard.
doing any dirty work like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's not his bread and butter, really, is it?
He is a warrior though, because we saw him in the War of the Last
It doesn't mean
Alliance.
he knows how to make swords.
I'm just saying he knows how to use one. But I take your point.
You've got a willy, but you don't know how to use it.
You bitch. I'm not going to answer that. Anyway, Gandalf and Pippin arrive at Minas Tirith. And as I've explained to you a couple of times, the city is not the first capital of Gondor. The first was Osgiliath, long ago. And again, it just comes back to like the world is in decline. So there was Osgiliath that was in the middle, and then you had Minas Tirith and Minas Ithil. Now, Minas Tirith, I think, used to be called Minas Anno, but its name was changed, so now it's Minas Tirith. And Minas Tirith, I think in the First Age, was the name of a fort in Beleriand, but I'd have to look that up, but I know there's another thing called Minas Tirith. But anyway, the point being, Isildur was like responsible for Minas Tirith, and his brother, I think it was Anarion, was responsible for Minas Ithil, and then they ruled together, and they had Osgiliath, where they had two thrones side by side. Unfortunately, Osgiliath has fell long ago, and Minas Ithil fell long ago. And do you know that the city that we'll talk about later, that's like full of green light in that?
Yeah.
That's Minas Ithil, and it's now called Minas Morgul, because it fell to the enemy. But that's by the by. Minas Tirith is built into the White Mountains, and it is a giant fortress. And do you remember we saying when we were watching it that it's got 7 gates, and you said it'd be a pain in the ass to climb because you'd start at like the one gate in the east, the west, and then you've got to go all. You've got to go all the way up the road to the east to get through at the next gate. Go through and then all the way back, and then all the way back, and there's 7 gates until you get to the top. It's to make it harder to attack, right? It's to withstand a siege. It's built into the fucking mountains because you can't come at it from the behind. You can't come at it from behind because you'd have to climb a whole mountain. You couldn't get an army over that. It's too big. So you have to come from the fields, the Pelennor Fields, which is the plains in front of it.
Yeah.
So it makes it a great position to defend. Pippin sees the White Tree of Gondor, which is born from a seedling of Nimloth, the White Tree of Numenor, in the Second Age. And that seedling was brought over from Tol Eressëa, which is the island furthest east of Aman. So it's the first part of Valinor, like Aman, like where the Valar live. That's the first bit, and that's the only bit that men would ever really get near. They'd never get to the actual mainland, apart from Tuor, who was allowed. But I've got a question. So your brother obviously is a landscaper, right? Do trees have family lines? Because this tree that is in Minas Tirith now is like the grand seed of a tree that was in Numenor. So how does it...
will, but I don't think it...
Is there a name for that?
I don't know. We'd have to ask him.
Yeah,
but
maybe I'd ask
they
him.
clearly do have lines because they make seeds. It's just it's not very traceable unless you knew exactly this, like, obviously within Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, everything's got...
some sort of heritage.
So do you know what's
connection.
weird is there's I've showed you, do you know the epic rap battles of history videos?
Yeah.
And there's one about J.R.R. Tolkien versus J.R.R. Martin, and there's a line and it says, "You went too deep for Professor Tweedpants. We don't need to hear the backstory for every fucking tree branch." And I always laughed at it and thought it was like just like hyperbole. Like, oh, ha ha ha, every tree's got a backstory. And then we were watching this and I was like, oh, fuck, every tree does have a backstory. The fucking Ents have got a backstory. This tree, I'm reading about this tree's granddad. Like, oh, well, if it gave off seeds, would it be its grandmother? I don't know. But, yeah, anyway, I just thought it was funny that you to say Tolkien is too deep, and then I'm reading about where these trees came from, and there's actually an answer to it. But it won't bloom until the king returns, because Gondor, again, is in the care of stewards. Now, a bit of a break. Instead of me like just describing the next few scenes, the next few scenes are Gandalf is telling Pippin not to say anything. They then meet Denethor, who knows Boromir is dead. Denethor, Pippin swears himself to Denethor, Denethor's a steward, you see him sitting by himself, and him and Gandalf don't get on. So instead of us just describing blow by blow what happens there, like what we all... Because I'm interested to know what your thoughts and your feelings were meeting Denethor like this.
I mean, he's grief-stricken, but he just seems really weak and kind of... I think he even though he's got his second son, he's just kind of given up. And he probably holds other men above his son that's left.
Yeah.
But obviously, his son's in the background. His other son's in the background in terms of like passing on his responsibility. But that's not the son that he wanted to pass things on to. So
no, Boromir is fucking firmly the favourite.
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking for me, like seeing how badly Faramir is treated by Denethor. Yeah. And do you know what makes it worse? We've talked about this before. When Aragorn was Thorongil and he was fighting for Ecthelion, Denethor's dad, Denethor knew exactly what it feels like to be the least favoured second son. Because essentially Thorongil, like Ecthelion loved him like a son, right? So Denethor knows exactly what this feels like, and he's still an absolute dick to Faramir. It's just, fuck me, like, oh... I don't know.
You just want to shake him.
You do, yeah, you do. Like, it's horrible. But after all this, Pippin swears himself to Denethor's service as payment for Boromir saving him and Merry's life, or what Pippin thinks is what he did. Denethor surprisingly takes him up on it, and then tell me the story of how Boromir fell. Gandalf, you can see, is just thinking, Chris was right, you are a div. You can see it in Ian McKellen's eyes, because I remember talking to him when I was 10. No, wait, when was this film? I was 9. I was 9 when this film came out. Yeah, you can see it in his eyes. But he then goes to explain that Gondor's in a state now where the line of kings failed and the stewards have become more obsessed with their own past glories than their sons. He says something like they remember the lines of kings and stewards before them better than they remember the names of their own sons, which it's interesting. It's like they just become obsessed with the past. But he also explains Sauron, because the Pippin saying that waiting on the eve of battle you can't escape is the worst thing of all, and Gandalf points out that Sauron is actually extending clouds and smog that's what the eruptions are.
Yeah, for the orcs to travel because they can't under sunlight.
Yeah, that's clever, that. Oh, it's great, isn't it? But on the next scene we move to Frodo, Sam and Gollum, my favourite topic. Yeah, they pass a statue of a king of Gondor from long ago, which looks like... Did you see that had been defaced by orcs, where like...
had like some sort of chained piece of stone that had been thrown at it or something.
Yeah. It's weird. It's never actually mentioned in the books who that king is. But this is just I think it's called like the Garden of Ithilien or something.
It brings back the flowers that were on the top of the mounds.
Oh, the Cymbeline from Rohan.
It's
yeah.
a plant, isn't it? That's on the top.
Is it? I didn't know this actually. I don't know if it is, but yeah.
It looked like the same plant that grows on the mounds.
Yeah, is it Cymbeline? Anyway, but yeah, that's like some small hope is revealed because
when the sun comes out, it
they say
shines.
oh, the king's got a crown again, because they see that the statue's head has got a crown of flowers, which is lovely. But in the books, and we see actually it's not even just in the books. This is all happening around the same time, because when Faramir sees Gandalf, he says, "I saw Frodo and Sam not 2 days ago."
Yeah.
So it is all happening like really, really fucking... We're really coming to a head now. But again, we flick back, and Pippin's received his uniform and gear for being in the service of the steward. Gandalf tries to comfort him, but he also explains that Sauron's pulling the Haradrim from the south, mercenaries from the coast, like the pirates, the Corsairs of Umbar, and that Gondor will be the staging ground for like the definitive like battles of the War of the Ring. But he also says that Sauron's yet to unleash his deadliest servant, which is the Witch King of Angmar. Now, the Witch King of Angmar is a super, super, super interesting character. So do you remember the elf Glorfindel, who we've talked about, the badass one?
Yeah.
he made a prophecy when the Witch King of Angmar. So the Witch King of Angmar was a king, obviously, of a place called Angmar, obviously. Yeah, but he's Sauron's greatest servant. So he was one of the 9 who got the ring and then fell to Sauron, but he's the greatest of it. But he led wars and he would break people by like fear and stuff. Like, he was a proper bastard. And he was in a war of with the Rohirrim, I think. And basically, like, I think he caused the death of one of the kings of Rohan. And they wanted to chase him. The men wanted to chase him, but Glorfindel said something like, it's not your destiny. He won't die here. He'll die far off, and not by the hand of man will he die. So, and the Witch King is aware of this prophecy when he says, like, he says at one point, like, no man can kill me. But Glorfindel made that prophecy so that everyone thinks that he can't be killed, because not by the hand of man will he die, basically, which is pretty cool. But we also see, obviously, he's the most feared servant, and he's going to be unleashed into the battle. But then we flick back again to Frodo, and we see that he's compelled to try and, when he staggers through the bridge at that greenish city that you said reminds you of WoW. Well, that's Minas Morgul, which it was Minas Ithil, and that's where the Witch King of Angmar basically has his seat of power. You see the explosion of light, and all that comes up because the armies are marching now. Sam, Frodo, and Gollum get off the path just in time.
One fine day in the Emerald City.
You just need to have courage, Frodo. Little did you know you had courage all along. But the Witch King's out on his fell beast doing that little screech that sounds like our kid as well. Like, oh god. You can imagine, like, Tolkien must have been writing this, like, hearing just babies screeching and going, I'm going to write about that, you little shit. That's going to be immortalised. Well, yeah, now that you've said it, you said that like, the colour reminds you of World of Warcraft, because we used to play that together.
Yeah.
And we started playing together when the Legion expansion came out, which is all about demons. It's all demons. It was all green and It was all green and demons. Yeah, but now that you said that, I can't unsee it. Like, I just think of it as like those islands, which is pretty cool. But I've just got here, like, there's this thing Peter Jackson has for stairs, and they just all seem to be like fucking stupidly. They're not stairs, man.
Yeah, you were like, they're not stairs.
He's just a dick with stairs. It's just like, what the fuck. Anyway, they're climbing up the stairs that leads to the pass of Cirith Ungol and the caves. But before that, things are happening, so we're flicking back and forth quite a lot now. Gandalf takes matters into his own hands. He knows the enemy's coming, but Denethor is just mad. He's just a mad bastard. So Gandalf sends Pippin to light the beacons, which is one of my favourite parts of the film.
Yeah, because Denethor sent his son.
Yes.
And
well, not yet. That comes in a little bit, because Faramir at this point is still at Osgiliath, and everything's a bit too quiet. It's all foggy, and that's when we see that the orcs and the Force of Mordor launching a stealth attack. We're also introduced. So did you see the orc who seems to be in charge, the one who's got the limp and that, and who?
He looks like a deformed piggy.
Yeah, he's well deformed, but that's kind of like that's orc's deal. But this orc is called Gothmog, and he shares a name with the leader of the Balrogs, the chief Balrog of Morgoth from the First Age. So that's a pretty fucking cool name to share. Like, we've seen one Balrog already, and that's Durin's Bane, who killed.
Who names orcs though?
I don't know, but I wouldn't. Like, if you like in a brutal society, under the rule of Sauron. So basically, like this Gothmog is so high up in the ranks of orcs that it goes Gothmog, the Witch King of Angmar, Sauron. That's his direct line manager is the Witch King of Angmar, whose line manager is Sauron,
Yeah.
whose line manager is Morgoth. So yeah, like he's leading that whole fucking Morgoth orc army. So I don't know who names orcs. That's a very good question, but I don't think Gothmog is a name that you would choose to give yourself with the implication. I mean, like, yeah, because so the chief Balrog of Morgoth would be pretty much equal in rank to Sauron because they both serve Morgoth. It might even slightly outrank him, but you know, but that obviously I think that one died in the first age. I don't know if it was one that like Glorfindel, I think, drowned one in a fountain at the fall of Gondolin, but I could be getting that mixed up. But yeah, really cool name. Lot of history of that one. So it's nice to see something from the enemy side with like that much history, like just in the ranks of orcs themselves, because they've always got mad names orcs, like especially the Mordor ones. I can't think of any examples, but it's always like Nasher and Grash and shit. That's like horrible to say.
BFG names.
Yeah, pretty much. I've also got here that Tolkien's great grand. So anyway, sorry, the Rangers and the soldiers of Osgiliath clock on that there's an attack just about to happen, and they respond as quickly as they can, and they quietly wait. And when they're gathering their weapons, that's Tolkien's great grandson who's handing out the spears. But an extra bit of trivia is that wig he's wearing. That's Aragorn's wig that he's wearing as part of that costume. But I've also got that. I think I read somewhere that Christopher Tolkien wasn't really a fan of Peter Jackson's work with what he was doing to Lord of the Rings, and I disagree because, like many people, this was my introduction to Lord of the Rings and the lore in general was the films. But I can see it from Christopher's point of view. This is the only person I'd accept that criticism from, because while Christopher was in the RAF and his whole life, his dad was sending him letters of when he was writing The Hobbit and writing Lord of the Rings. Like, he was sending him the stories bit by bit, and his whole life was dedicated to the preservation of his dad's work. And the Silmarillion, which I've read to you, was only published because Christopher was able to give it an internal narrative structure. And well, you've seen the books I've been reading, Joe, the History of Middle-earth series.
Yeah.
That's his commentary on his father's earliest works. So that and someone from work put it very, very succinctly, is that J.R.R. Tolkien created the lore, but Christopher was a custodian of it his whole life. So he's also someone I'd accept as a primary source on Tolkien. Like, his word, for me, his word is as good as the man's himself. If Christopher Tolkien says something is how it is, that's how it is. But so you can understand, my point being, someone who's that closely tied with it, that you think almost any adaptation would be like, oh, fuck no, this isn't how it should be. This isn't what my dad meant. But, it's one of those things. I don't think he was a fan of it, but for all the good it's done for the bringing people to Tolkien's work, I think it's worth it. Yeah, the Rangers, they prepare as best they can for the attack. And they put up a good defence. But yeah, what were you thinking while you were seeing Osgiliath being attacked?
I think they put up a good fight, really.
Yeah, considering they had literally minutes.
And they barely had anyone.
Yeah, they were holding. They thought the fight was over, didn't they?
Yeah.
They thought they took Osgiliath back, and then they were just holding the garrison there, and then all of a sudden, the whole army's here. Oh shit.
Yeah, and when you see the volume of the army,
once an army.
they retreat, and you see how many there are. When there's that scene where the father is looking over, and you see the whole army.
Oh yeah, when Denethor,
you think where they had any chance, did they?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
because they're all the ones that have had to cross the same path. So there was just absolutely no chance, and then no chance when they go back.
Yeah, I think with that level of force on the move, regardless of how many was sent to take Osgiliath, Osgiliath was going to fall, whether it was by this stealth attack or whether by a sustained.
And when that orc in the boat shot the guy that alerted them
Well, he lured them by his death,
by
didn't he?
his
Yeah.
death. That arrow went straight through his armour, like his breastplate.
Yeah, his plate, yeah.
So, even in terms of, like, you would think, like, a breastplate would stop an arrow from an orc, you would think. But obviously their weapons are quite powerful for orcs. Like, to get through, or they've just not been well equipped.
I don't know.
It wouldn't be if, like, because he doesn't think much of his son, so he wouldn't.
Well, no, it's Gondorian armour. Like, it's just standard Gondorian soldiers' armour. But I don't know enough about armour to comment on it. My instinct tells me that it's like a high... Do you know, like, a high heel does more damage to, like, a full mat than a tank does.
Yeah.
Because it's all that pressure. So, like, if you were being slashed with a sword or, like, being dinged with a mace, like, a breastplate would stand up a lot better to it.
Yeah.
But it's that point of arrow, and it's a short bow as well he uses, so it's like it generates a lot of force quickly, and it just punctures straight through, and that's what it's for. It's a piercing weapon, isn't it? So I can understand, like, kind of, but yeah, the armor. But again, as we mentioned, the armor is almost fantastic to look at, amazing the story behind how it was made and all that, but not how
ineffective.
But, well, yeah, ineffective to orc arrows, but also not what Tolkien wrote. He was, they were wearing, like, chainmail and tabards and stuff, so there was no plate, was there? But yeah, like you said, there's no chance they were gonna. It was a surprise attack by a much larger force that they weren't expecting. They thought the fight was over. But then we see Pippin as I love this for all the wrong reasons. Pippin climbs up a very steep and dangerous tower to light the beacon, which is class.
That's like your type of behaviour, really.
You're
an arsonist.
I'm doing this. No, I'm doing this whether you like it or not, but I love seeing the beacons lit. It's just... What these films do for me, as I've discovered rewatching them with you, is some of the speeches and, like, the last minute, like, the way things turn around, or some of the acts, it's just... It instills hope about so many things.
I felt the same seeing the beacons. I was like, It was like a touching moment. It was like a tear in the eye moment of kind of unity, and it's that thing, like, that you know, at the beginning of COVID, and everyone was like all in it together, and majority of people stayed in, and it was like, let's do what we can, and that kind of, like, mentality. And then when we had, like, the World Cup, everyone was like, oh, we're getting to the final, and, like, all these situations where we act like good human beings, and there's, like, we can join together for stuff, and when it really counts we can join together. But obviously, like, I think especially, I know we keep talking about, like, the times at the minute and how dire things seem, but, like, it's like a good escapism, this film in particular, because it was like, oh, like, it made me feel hopeful, because at the minute for our world I don't feel very hopeful.
Yeah.
So, like, seeing them coming together was like an emotional moment for me.
Yeah, it's spot on, like, like, it's evoking the hope, which is what we need in our lives at the moment, is we need hope. So we'll take it wherever we can get it. But yeah, seeing the relay of the beacons from Minas Tirith to Edoras. Denethor sees it and is fucking raging. And you said that one of the beacons was on Mount Crumpet.
Yeah, I was like, the Grinch is coming.
Yeah, and now I can't get...
I can't remember what I said, though. Like, I said something funny.
Well, that was it, yeah. It's Mount Crumpet.
it was funny. No, there was something else that I said about, like, lighting the beacons. And I was like, oh, was it not like I said, Max, fetch me my cloak? He's getting ready for battle.
7 to 7:30, Battle at Pelennor Field. I can't keep cancelling. If I beat Sauron, I could be back to stare into the abyss by 9.
I think that totally should be
I would love...
a spoof.
I would love to see the Grinch in. I've been watching those videos where it's like Ace Ventura in Cyberpunk.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'd love to see like the Grinch in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Oh man, whoever makes those videos is class. I was watching I can't remember what I was watching the other day, but I can't get away from this. And like, I make fun of people who talk about Harry Potter so much. I think I've mentioned it every fucking week on this podcast.
Well, I stopped myself a couple of occasions today.
I think it must be because we're playing that Hogwarts game that like it's just on my mind. But when Pippin is climbing down, that CGI is bad, right? But it's second only to during the first Harry Potter film where Neville falls off the statue.
Yes.
And like if you pause it, he looks like a fucking PS1 character. Right, it's that kind of level of CGI. But Aragorn is sat having a smoke when he sees the beacon. And he runs into the hall to tell Theoden that Gondor calls for aid, and it's very, very tense as he thinks about it. And then he says, "And Rohan will answer," and it's that hope again. It's that unity.
Goosebumps.
It's the goosebumps. Yeah, how fucking sad is our world that me and you are taking our main source of hope that things will be okay from a fictional king making a fictional speech about fictional war. Fuck's sake. But Éomer is tasked with gathering the men and mustering at Dunharrow in 2 days because on the 3rd they march to war. Which, it's just, so good. Éowyn and Merry both want to fight. Merry giving himself to Theoden in service. And Merry becomes an esquire of Rohan, which is really good. And this is a throwaway line, which I'm grateful is in here. And that Gimli says, like, about all these men on horses, like, give me a company of dwarves, like, filthy and ready to fight. And Legolas informs him that his people won't need to march to war because war's already marching on them.
Yeah.
And this is what has been alluded to. It's not really written about many places, but this is the war in the north, where a great host of Easterlings attack the Iron Hills and the Lonely Mountain and that. And in this war, the King of Dale, which I think is Brand, grandson of Bard from the Hobbit films, he dies, and so does Dane Ironfoot, who is Thorin's cousin. So it's unfortunate, but they held off reinforcements coming down to Gondor, so everyone in Middle-earth, fighting on the side of the good fight, was doing their part, and we only see a bit of it. We see the defence we switch back to Osgiliath, and the defence is breaking because the Nazgul attack. I just wanted to point out as well that in the books, Gothmog is never really specified. Like, it's not given a description as to what he is. Some speculate that he's a man, because there is men in Sauron's service. Some speculate he's a Nazgul, or maybe he's just an orc. But in the films, they went with an orc who looks to be like half troll. It looks like, fuck knows. As the men are retreating from Osgiliath, one of the coolest scenes. Do you know when Gandalf rides out onto the plane?
Yeah, they're all getting plucked.
Yeah, and you have that, like, the music goes quite quiet, and it's like, oh, and like the big ray of light. It's just beautiful.
And then he does that sort of semicircular canter gallop to join the other men.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And then this is when they get back inside, Gandalf realises from the way he looks at Pippin that he's met halflings before. Like, he knows about halflings. And we see that the Frodo and Sam were on the road to the Morgul Vale, going towards Cirith Ungol just 2 days ago. And this is sad. And I wrote a big note about this, which perhaps just reveals more about me as a person than about anything in the story, of Denethor has his major cunt scene with Faramir. Makes me so fucking angry seeing Denethor as a twisted, bitter old man. He wanted the ring for Gondor, and again says Boromir would have done it better. Simple fact is, Faramir is far more noble than Denethor is. It doesn't help that Sauron has twisted his mind ridiculous amounts in the background. Denethor thought he was powerful enough to use the Palantir. He wasn't, and Sauron showed him things selectively to twist his perceptions.
So is he a bad person or not?
that's my mind is obviously made up that he is, but
Is it through manipulation, though?
I think it's a little bit of everything. But unfortunately, unlike the Doors song, this doesn't make me sad and happy at the same time.
Because Faramir is definitely the strongest out of the three men.
Yeah, because Faramir had the chance to take the ring.
Yeah, he had the chance to take the ring and he didn't. And ultimately, he wants like the greater good, doesn't he? Whereas Boromir, it was like he got the strong pull and attacked Frodo at one point for the ring.
It's all about intentions, like because Faramir says that I would not use the ring even if Gondor was falling around me and I was the only person who could save it. Boromir would, and Boromir would always said like, we could use it as a weapon
to save his people.
Yeah, it's just the ring. That's the thing about the ring is it's corrupting. It twists. That's what it does, and that's what it always does. Yeah, but Osgiliath is taken, and the legions are coming to Minas Tirith. But back at the worst stairs ever constructed, Gollum gaslights Sam so much by saying he's sneaking. Yeah, he's saying he's sneaking. And then manipulates Frodo further by saying that Sam wants the ring and soon he'll ask for it.
Yeah.
Which he orchestrates. Pippin, we see after a couple of scenes later, Pippin's wearing Faramir's own clothes. That's where his gears come from. So you do wonder, why is this hobbit-sized gear here? It's because it was Faramir's when he was a kid, which is nice. They're not in the films anywhere, but in the book, Pippin makes friends with a guard called Beregond and his son Beregil, and they have a good time together. Beregond shows him his duty because it goes into more Pippin's duties as a guard of the city.
Yeah.
And Beregil, they actually, I think Beregil says "Oh, I could wrestle you," and then Pippin basically just threatens to kill him, like a kid, just because to humans who haven't seen hobbits before, obviously they look like kids. So Beregil is about the same size as Pippin, so he's I could beat you up, and Pippin's I'll fucking kill you. Just stone cold G.
Extreme.
I'll fucking kill you little shit. But no, they make friends, which is nice. Pippin takes his oath as a guard of the Citadel, where Denethor makes a pointed speech about rewarding courage and punishing disobedience. And you get the sense that he's speaking to Faramir the whole time.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah. And Pippin's just stood there awkwardly,
Yeah, it's a shame. But I did want to point this out because I think it's hilarious. But because word of the week again, philologist. Because Tolkien's was a philologist. A lot of attention is paid to language naturally, and because there's that quote that Tolkien made Middle Earth so his languages would have somewhere to play. In the way the Hobbit speech is constructed so informally compared to the high speech of Gondor and what have you, that because of the way Pippin speaks, they don't the hobbits don't really have a way a deference to different ranks of people.
Yeah.
So because of the way that Pippin speaks so informally around Denethor and Faramir, etc., that people start rumours that he's a super high-born noble in his own land.
Because he's just so casual.
Because he's so casual around these
gives
great
an air
men.
Of confidence.
Yeah, right. That he's a really noble, and there's a rumor going around Gondor, around Minas Tirith, that Pippin has promised 5,000 soldiers to defend Gondor, 5,000 hobbits, which I just think it's hilarious, because
he's the div.
Yeah, the thing was in the times of the deep past of the Shire, when there was wars, hobbits occasionally did send companies of bowmen to go and fight in the wars, but they never came back. But then eventually hobbits fell out of all recorded history. So by the time of The Lord of the Rings, nobody really knows who or where they are. So they don't get asked for anything. They're just left to themselves. And they're protected by the Dunedain, who just keep their borders.
Yeah.
Which is nice, because you forget that Eriador is its own country, which is where the Shire is located. And Middle Earth is massive. I think if you walk from the virtual challenge I'm doing, if you walk from the Shire to Mordor, it's essentially, I think, like me walking from the north of England to, I think it's Italy. It's essentially like me walking to Italy. So it's about the size of Europe, Middle Earth-ish. So yeah, it's just that sense of scale for you.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
is it Yorkshire? I think it's Yorkshire or another county that's roughly the size of the Shire. So it's somewhere the size of.
And I mean, the people in Yorkshire, they're like hobbits, aren't they? So
yeah, it's just interesting. So it's somewhere the size of Yorkshire in Europe.
It all fits now.
And that explains why they're all forgotten about.
Going to pub.
Yeah, going to Green Dragon. That's right, Rosie. It's your Sam. I'm going to have 13 kids with you.
Oh.
I think Sam does have like 13 kids, you know. Absolute lunatic. That's why he's a hero. That's why he's made of stronger stuff than any of us. I'm fucking tapped out after one. But Pippin's his 5,000 cards aren't going. And then unfortunately I've got to get sad again because Denethor wants Osgiliath retaken.
Because he's just a tit.
Yeah, and he tells Faramir that he wished he died instead of Boromir.
Yeah.
Right. Do you want to tell the listeners what you said when we watched the scene and I said, well, that'd be like your parents saying, I wish, like that'd be like your parents saying to your brother, I wish you died instead of Becca. And then what did you say? Do you remember?
I said, well, I am the favourite.
You absolute bastard. Fucking hell.
Well, if anyone knows me and my brother well enough, they would know that I am certainly the favourite. I'm definitely the easier child.
Yeah, because you've moved out. You're the favourite child in hindsight. But Faramir says he will retake Osgiliath and leaves. Which is horrible because everybody, and we see in the scene where they're leaving the city, everybody knows that they're going to certain death.
Yeah.
It's just a futile charge. Even Gandalf's like, don't throw away your life to your father's madness. And then Faramir has that.
It's just done.
He says, like, well, it's kind of, again, it's that noble sadness. He says, like, my allegiance is to Gondor. And if not here, then where? What is the point of my life?
Yeah.
So I'd rather die in service to Gondor. Which is just, oh. But back with Gollum and co. Ooh, I hate this. I know, I can see you getting angry. I got angry as well, where
Sprinkle.
sprinkles the crumbs and throws the fucking lembas bread away. But did you also notice that he can't look at it? He's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Did you see he's like turn away? He's like, ah.
Yeah.
Before he throws it away. But Sam wakes up. Gollum acts all innocent until blah blah blah. Sam notices.
Goes apeshit again.
Oh, he goes apeshit, yeah. And Gollum very conveniently goes, oh, what's this? And brushes the crumbs away. Then just straight up starts saying Frodo, oh, he's always stuffing his face.
Yeah, the fat hobbit.
Yeah. Then Frodo...
I think it was fattest. Being really, like, I felt personally attacked, if I'm honest. I mean, if something had gone missing and I had a crumb on it, and a skinny person had a crumb on them, it would be me, wouldn't it? They'd be like, look at her, she clearly...
Stupid fat hobbits.
The shit.
Do you reckon we should
Just because he only eats bloody raw fish.
Yeah, do you think we should normalise that insult in our house, just calling each other stupid fat hobbits?
Yeah, until she goes to nursery and calls, like...
Oh, God, yeah.
One of the teachers.
Yeah, can you come in? Can you tell me why your daughter's called one of the kids a stupid fat hobbit? Were they being a stupid fat hobbit? That's very important. But no, Frodo sides with Gollum straight away. Fuck's sake. But I do like seeing Sam go berserk and pummel Gollum.
Yeah.
Like he put if that was an MMA match, the ref would have stepped in there and declared Sam winner by TKO.
Like, I felt like Gollum's face after that should have looked like that guy in that professional slapping match.
Oh yeah, the one like where he's all like
Yeah.
he's gums like his cheek
He's
and his
all
gums are coming away
swollen
from
up.
his jaw.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, Frodo freaks out and tells Sam to leave, and that's not good. I think that's the last we see of them.
Fair.
Yeah, that's the last we see of them in this part of the film,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And Gollum goes crawling off with Frodo, and Sam's left crying.
Yeah, he's gonna have to go home. But then we get back where we've already talked about Faramir and the procession going away. But I did have some speculation here, and it's not exactly it's a bit secondhand. But Faramir and the procession are going, and that whole feeling of throwing your life away to a futile attempt, it did make me wonder, like, was Tolkien, is this exactly how was Tolkien writing about how men would feel in, like, the First World War, being told to go over the top and stuff like that, you know, because, like...
Yeah, because you knew that...
You were going to die, like, you
Yeah.
knew you were going to die, like, yeah, it's just... Denethor asks Pippin to sing for him back in his hall, and Pippin says that his songs aren't meant for great halls or evil times. And as he starts to sing about through shadow at the edge of night, and like, it's a great song. I think it's Billy Boyd who plays Pippin, and he sings it beautifully. And he's done it on
an
like
angel.
he's done it on like Cameo and stuff as well, or like TikTok or something, where it still sang it. But in the charge over the Pelennor Fields towards Gilead is set to like this song. But it's also, I could barely watch this. It is the most abused that I've ever seen tomatoes and cooked chicken be in a film, with Denethor
Like-
stuffing his face
Yeah.
while singing.
And it's like running down his chin. Ugh.
There's someone who's done that. There's like they've stitched a TikTok, I think, or a Cameo, where Billy Boyd's singing and someone's eating like a punnet of tomatoes at the same time in the same way, just like going, just like slavering them in the face. It's the song. The song is beautiful. My favourite song from Middle Earth songs of praise is it's actually from the Hobbit films. It's the way they sing, where Thorin sings about over the misty mountains,
Yeah.
called caverns deep and dungeons all. But this one is up there. It's not really covered, and I've not really covered it to you. But when I get over the Lord of the Rings after I've read the Hobbit, I'll show you. But there is tons and tons of songs in there that Tolkien wrote. My struggle's always been finding the beat, like finding the way to sing them in my head, because I just tend to just rap them.
So we're just waiting for Ed Sheeran to
Well, he did I See
Crack
Fire, didn't he?
out
Did
the-
I See
yeah.
Fire from...
crack out.
that was
the
great,
songs.
that was mint. 'Cause even that mentions... Oh, no, now when you listen to it...
Mountains.
Yeah, but he also talks about Durin's folk as well, so now you'll know more about that. But yeah, it's just... The song ends, basically, as the orcs let their arrows fly, which is a shame. You can see Pippin's really upset by it all. But back at Dunharrow, Theoden are getting ready to march with the musters of the soldiers being called out. Did you notice that when they were going through the camp, like they were shouting out like 300 from so and so, my lord, and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. Like it's just pretty hectic, right? Getting on mustering a force like that because
Yeah, and he's like talking to Aragorn, saying like, "Well, we've got 6,000." And Aragorn's like, "It won't be enough." And he's like, "Yeah, but there'll be more coming." Like, and that's the first time you see Theoden seem quite optimistic. Like he seems upbeat, whereas the rest of the time he's been like quite sort of glum.
it is. Yeah, it's weird because later on,
Well, he's
where,
obviously got that testosterone and
I don't know what that is because
endorphins running through
because
him.
we see in a few scenes when Aragorn and that leave to the paths of the dead. I don't know whether it's Éomer or it might be. I think that might be Hammer. I'm not sure who that character is. I think it's Hammer, the other guy who's
Yeah, the
always with
two
Éomer.
are like gingers who are like,
Yeah, so one's Éomer.
"Oh, where's he gone?"
Yeah, one's Éomer, and I think the other one's Hammer.
They're abandoning us.
Yeah, and but then Theoden is really upbeat because
Yeah.
they say like, "We've got no chance of winning this, my lord," and he says, "No, but we'll ride out anyway."
Yeah.
Which obviously noble as folk made me want to die for Theoden.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird.
And as
is
well,
it,
you
is it
kind
like
of
that?
see him in his own, because I think
Yeah.
like some kings, and that's like it goes for like British history as well. Some kings fight, and some kings are politicians.
Yeah, like Theoden, Aragorn would happily die for them.
He's like in his element, isn't he? He doesn't. I don't think he necessarily likes making the decisions in terms of like keeping a kingdom. He's like a fighter.
Yeah, he's a warrior king, and that's what I could respect. I could respect strength essentially, and I could respect like valor and charisma. Interesting talking about like valiant kings. I won't spoil it for you, but there is a part in the next film that doesn't appear in the film. It's actually in the book. Shazam. There's a part in the book where Aragorn is marching with an army to a place, right? And some of the soldiers are getting scared, and Aragorn tells them that if you cannot continue, you can turn back, you can go. And some do go still, but some, seeing how gentle and kind Aragorn is being as like a leader, that gives them the courage to carry on.
Yeah.
And that, again, it's the same thing as like they're marching towards almost certain death, and they still go because of the strength of their leaders. And I don't know, I think we go back to like, you know, like modern times. Like, are we lacking that? Because I've got no faith in our leaders. Because I think, honestly, like the people who aspire to lead shouldn't be allowed. Like, you know, like if
it shouldn't be allowed to work at Tesco.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just we go back to like that feelings of hope we get from watching these things. Watching this in particular, it's so lacking in our world that like in our time or our world that like that's what we grasp for.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's not even a happier one actually. It's not even a happier scene because we see Merry getting his own gear. So Pippin's got Gondor, Merry's got Rohan. And they're both becoming soldiers in their own right, which for a hobbit's super, super unusual.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, that's what Merry thinks.
Well, yeah, but then Eowyn gears him up, sends him off to the smithy to go and sharpen his sword, and Eomer doubts that he'd be useful in battle. And on first watch, you could think that Eomer's been a bit too harsh here. But if you listen to his words, where he says, like, what will happen when the blood starts and the screaming and the killing, he'd freeze up or he'd run away. And then he says, and he'd be right to.
Yeah.
And that's Eomer. I think that's Eomer taking a soldier's view of a harsh, like, battlefield. But Eowyn defends him by saying, you know, she defends him, but I think we know that she's really talking about herself.
Yeah.
Saying that she'd be just as useful in battle. And Eomer essentially ends the conversation by saying that war is for men. Now, I do want to clear up something. Do you remember last episode or the episode before where you asked me a question about shield maidens? I think it was last episode. You'd said,
yes.
Is shield maiden like a position in the army or like the women fight? So I went away and I got an answer for you. Essentially,
exciting.
Yeah, well, the answers I could find is that officially Rohan has no quote-unquote... No, not quote-unquote. Rohan has no professional... No, sorry. Rohan has no... I can't think of where to put my air quotes. Officially, Rohan has no women who are quote-unquote professional soldiers, i.e. as part of the standing army. Like, your life is you're a soldier, you get up, you do soldier things, you guard things, blah, blah, blah. But in times of war,
They come to the
when they
call.
were conscripted, or there is a need for soldiers, women may have joined up then.
Okay.
So Rohan didn't have shield maidens as part of its standing army, but I don't think it would have been unusual for women to fight as part of the army, as and when needed. But we skip to night where Aragorn's asleep and whips out a knife when someone comes to the tent, because Theoden summoned Aragorn for an esteemed visitor, and it's Elrond who's brought Andúril, the blade that was broken has been reforged. The blade that was forged by Telcontar in the deep past it's back, baby. The bitch is back. I love this sword. It's just because I've got it hanging in my office, and it was an anniversary gift. Was it for our first anniversary?
Yeah.
For our first wedding anniversary.
I don't know how I'm going to trump it, to be honest.
Glamdring, maybe. Not Sting. A full suit of Citadel Guard armour for Gondor. Not the common soldier armour. I want the armour of the. I want the armour of the ones who guard the tree.
Well, can I buy like a piece at a time? Like each year you get a piece because I'm going to run out of things.
I would like gauntlets first, so I can type with gauntlets on. But yeah, so basically the blade that's broken has been reforged. Again, this is a narrative device for more drama because in the books, the big difference between book Aragorn and film Aragorn is film Aragorn is almost reluctant to acknowledge his past. Book Aragorn from day one, pretty much, or from Rivendell onwards, is like, I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn. I'm your fucking king, essentially. But in the books, he's had Anduril for basically the whole time, because there's that whole argument that when in the beginning, the first part of the Two Towers, where they get to Meadowseld, and they need to leave their weapons at the door. In the books, Aragorn's like, this is the sword of the king of... Yeah, Aragorn's like, this is the sword of the king of Gondor. Anyone who draws it except me will die. I will fucking kill them. Whereas, obviously, film Aragorn doesn't have Anduril then. But yeah, that's the big difference. Another big difference coming on. I think as we get more towards the end, like, things have to diverge a fair bit, just for narrative purposes. But Aragorn is told by Elrond that Arwen is dying and her life is tied to that of the ring. I would just like to point out to you here, my dear wife, that Elrond is just being a massive drama queen. Because her life is tied to the ring in the same way that everybody else's life in Middle-earth is tied to the ring at this point.
That's what I got from that. I was like, well, yeah, of course, because it's to save the actual continent.
Yeah, so
that she lives on, like.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's like, it's like saying, it's like going on public telly. You going on public telly and saying, Chris's life is now tied to the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because in the sense that if Putin uses a fucking nuke that gets us all, I'll die with everyone else.
Well, Chris is the most.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like going and saying Chris's life is tied to the war in Ukraine. Like technically you're right.
Yeah.
But again, it's just a narrative device. It's shorthand, isn't it? Well, yeah, it made me laugh so much. It's just that she chose to give up her immortality, right? And that we've already discussed that. She's not going to Valinor. Elrond. So Gandalf told him. Now Elrond's telling him. Gandalf told him in a roundabout way, but Elrond's telling him straight now. Go and see the King of the Dead. Go and get the King of the Dead. And they were a kingdom of mountain men who swore allegiance to Isildur to help him. But when the time came for the War of the Last Alliance to fight against Sauron, they refused. They fled into the mountain. And you might not remember this because we were horrendously drunk during that first episode, but do you remember me telling you about oaths in Middle-earth and how important they are?
Yeah.
This, for anyone who's listening for the first time, why you're listening for the third film, whatever, but anyone listening for the first time is... Oaths in Middle-earth carry power. If you swear an oath, you are held to it. It invokes some deep power. And the most sacred oath you can swear is on Eru Ilúvatar. And that's what they did. They swore on Eru Ilúvatar that they would support Isildur. So then Isildur cursed them to never be able to rest until they fulfill their oath. And what this means in practical terms is that these men couldn't go to rest in the halls of Eru. They couldn't go to their afterlife. They couldn't go beyond the rings of the world. Unfortunately, they brought it on themselves. Aragorn's about to leave. And finally, Éowyn seems to understand the rejection that he's been too nice to properly spell out to her. But she understands. I think she finally understands. He loves Arwen, knee chance. Finally, fuck me.
Got there.
Yeah, but anyway, nicer scene is that Gimli and Legolas are like, "Where do you think you're going?" He's like, "I've got to do this alone." They're like, "Yeah, whatever." So they go off with him, which is nice. The soldiers are not happy. They see this is very public, and it looks like he's deserting them on the eve of battle, which is. So it's not. I can understand that's a big blow to morale.
Yeah.
But then Theoden, like, do you know when they say that people who are going to commit suicide get, like, manic or, like, they've got mania where they're really happy just beforehand?
Yeah, that's what
Theoden smacks of this as well.
That's what I was saying. Like,
Yeah.
he seems to be like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, do you think he's like, he's fully accepted his fate, and he's like, yeah, we don't have enough forces to meet them. And he's like, nope, we'll ride anyway. Which, fair dues. I mean, if it's going to be the end of the world as you know it, like, there's no point. You know, you might as well try and resist.
You're just prolonging it, really, aren't you? If you don't go.
What I did like about the next bit, you know, where they're going through the mountains to the paths of the dead, they're going to the dim hole, which is the black wood. Those mountains, the white stark with like the deep shadows and stuff, always makes me think that is what I imagined Ered Gorgoroth looked like, which was the Mountains of Terror in the north of Beleriand, and that's where Ungoliant fled to, and she had her descendants, like, she mated with the monstrous spiders in those mountains, and that's what Shelob is a child of, is the last child of Ungoliant. But it's just those, it always gives me the creeps seeing those mountains like that, and that's what I imagine the Mountains of Terror. Because Beren was the only person to come through, Beren in one hand, was the only person to come through the Mountains of Terror, and even he wouldn't speak of it because of how, like, horrible it was. Which, it's just a bit of nerd bit on that for me. But once they get to the doors of the dead, Brago, the horse, does the sensible thing and fucks off. Unfortunately, I said to you, like, I was
like, they're gonna cast the horses away anyway because they can't take them in.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I mean, they love just getting rid of their horses, don't they?
Oh, build a pony. Yeah.
They're just like, right, see us.
Well, they're well-trained horses, though. They'll know where to go, like...
Somehow.
Yeah, well...
It's because it's a magical, mystical land, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, like, our dog, right, he knows where we live. So if I let him off, at the end of the street... I've done it before, right? I'll walk back and he's got no lead on, but if I don't stop him, he'll just run along to home and wait for me at the front door.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying the other day about the back gate. If the back gate's open, he just has a little sniff out the gate and then he comes back in.
So you could just assume horses are crossbred.
He knows where he's looked after.
Horses are crossbred with Labradors.
Yeah.
It must be. But, Brago goes, and I love this bit where Gimli has a proper wobble. He really doesn't want to go. But then Legolas goes in and Gimli's like, oh, this is unheard of. A dwarf refuses to go underground and an elf just goes. So then he runs in. Yeah, they go in. It's pretty spooky. The Rohirrim are breaking camp and Theoden tells Merry that he can't go. And he gives one of his best Theodenisms, which I love, where it's, it's like that how to speak more like Theoden. And it's, instead of saying no, just say, I will say no more on this.
Yeah.
he tells Merry that. And, you guessed quite quickly what would happen with Eowyn and Merry, right? Because as soon as he said that, you were like, oh, I bet Eowyn would carry him. Unfortunately, you were wrong, though, because Merry gets picked up by a soldier called Dernhelm. So I have no idea where Eowyn... I don't think Eowyn appears in the films anymore. No idea what happens to her, but anyway, Merry's picked up by a soldier called Dernhelm, who takes him with him to battle. No, him. Dernhelm's a man. Silly. I've got in my note here that the three heroes, we go back to Aragorn and that, and they're surrounded by skulls, and it's less impressive now as an adult because we've visited several catacombs.
Yeah.
Or catacombs, or whatever the pronunciation is. I was just thinking it's nothing we've not really seen IRL.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like I'm back in Rome.
Yeah, we went to ones in Rome. I've been to the ones in Paris as well, and like...
I think those would be... The ones in Paris would be more like to the ones in this film. Because obviously the ones we went to in Rome were like typically decorated with skulls, or they were completely empty. So there were just holes in walls. Whereas this one was like a complete like mass of like skulls and bones stacked up. But it wasn't like intentionally that way. Yeah.
Well, we do see that the King of the Dead Men of Dunharrow, after spooking Gimli with some like, do you know like in in Disney cartoons where there's like a pie on a windowsill and the steam becomes a finger that like beckons you?
Yeah.
That's just exactly what I was thinking of when
It
Gimli.
reminded me of Haunted Mansion type
Oh, yeah.
ghosts.
Well, yeah, it was like that, and Gimli's just like trying to pull him away. But the King of the Dead Men of Dunharrow does come forth, and they try to spook Aragorn with a show of their ghostly army. Which I found weird,
Flex.
because, yeah, like, why would you flex on, like, every single nobody who came through the mountain? Like, what's the point in that? It's just, I don't know why, but Aragorn reveals himself to them, and they kindly ask him to put it away.
I wouldn't.
And then he draws his second sword, and he summons them to fulfill their oath, which...
I'll get him to fulfill his oath.
Yeah. At first they don't believe him until the king tries to attack Aragorn, like he's going to kill him. And lo and behold, Anduril can parry the blade. So they don't get an answer when he says, like, fight for me and I'll hold your oath fulfilled. But we do get a landslide of bones, which I thought was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Although the CGI made it just look like popcorn. But they do get to the other side of the mountain, and Aragorn is really upset because he sees the Corsairs coming up the river. And like I mentioned, if they get to Minas Tirith, they can reinforce the enemies. They are fucked. It's a massive army anyway, but then if reinforcements but luckily, the Ghost King comes out of the mountain and says that they will fight, so there's now hope on some level. Back at Gondor, though, Faramir's body is dragged back in by his horse. He's peppered with arrows again. The plate didn't do much to it, but Faramir is brought before his father as the heads of the other soldiers are catapulted over the walls, because the army of Mordor is marshalled outside now. And Denethor sees this and starts screaming about his line having ended, and I think he's broke now. He's gone.
Yeah.
He's mad. But he doesn't even listen to Pippin telling him that Faramir is still alive. Like, he's completely convinced that his
Feeling
line's
sorry for
dead.
himself.
Yeah, he just goes crazy. He screams at everyone to abandon the post.
And Gandalf's just like, get back!
Yeah, after knocking out Denethor with
Yeah.
his staff, which is great. And then we see siege weapons being used, which, how cool is that, right?
Yeah. I like the battering rams. And the big sort of like Trojan horse like.
Oh, what do you mean, the siege towers, or do you mean the big wolf
Yeah,
head?
the siege
Oh,
towers.
the siege towers are awesome.
With all the orcs all.
Yeah, it's
Chilling.
the siege towers. It's awesome, but
And that mechanism again where it latches onto the side of the.
yeah, they're good
the
at
wall.
that. Yeah, they're
like
good at
them.
that. Siege warfare. But Pippin enters the battle when he goes to see Gandalf.
Yeah.
And he proves he's not totally worthless because he saves Gandalf's life when an orc goes to stab him, right? And he's just like, whap. And I love watching it. Like, again, there's not much to comment on from a lore point of view. But watching this war unfold is just unreal. It's just peak cinema, isn't it? Like, I just love watching it.
Yeah.
Like, just watching it just go mental.
And our TV's pretty big.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting a new TV today, actually. I thought putting this 4K one upstairs and getting rid of ours because it's showing its age now.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. I was just thinking that I want to watch Lord of the Rings 4K in bed. So,
You are just
I know.
peaking nerd.
but speaking of nerdy, you couldn't stop me shouting "Grond"
Yeah.
while we were watching this.
Because I was like, what? Grunt? Grunt?
Yeah, I was
What
just
are they shouting?
I was sat watching it, and along with all the orcs, I was going "Grond, Grond, Grond,"
Yeah.
and we see Grond, which is the big wolf's head. However, this is Tolkien we're talking about. There's history for this. Grond is the name of Morgoth's weapon, which was the hammer of the underworld, which he uses to kill Fingolf. I think Fingolfin dies by Morgoth's hand. Yeah. Yes, Fingolfin duels Morgoth one-on-one. He says, "Come fight me, coward." And he brings out, and when it's described as when Grond hits the ground, it leaves like craters. Like it's a fucking heavy weapon. Yeah, because Feanor, I think, is killed by, like, he's wounded mortally by Balrogs. I think Gothmog might have fatally wounded Feanor, actually. And then Fingolfin fights, but Morgoth used Grond, which is the hammer of the underworld. But that's the cliffhanger. Well, as you said, that's the end of that. Like, what we... That.
Just absolutely devastated.
Yeah, you got to wait till next
And
week.
I'm going to have to wait until next week now, so that was just pure evil.
Yeah, but so what was your favourite part of this film?
So my favourite part, I don't know, there's so many.
Was this your favourite film?
Yes. So I think it
Well, half of a film.
It probably was the part at the very end where like the siege.
Oh yeah, so we're seeing the Siege of Minas Tirith.
Just because it's exciting and it's like, you know, you feel fully immersed in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And you know that this is like the crescendo.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I wanted more. Because I was like invested at this point.
Yeah.
Probably the part I least enjoyed was just Frodo. I just think, just bugger off.
Yeah.
Give Sam the ring and let him do it.
Oh no, that's the thing. Like, it doesn't work if Sam gets the ring.
But it just, Frodo's just naff. Like, thank the Lord he's deteriorating.
Well, no,
I'd be devastated if Sam.
No, he's deteriorating because of the ring.
I know, but I don't think he was even like amazing at the beginning.
Frodo is he is like I fully disagree with you on that. Like, I'm tired of him at the moment because because of the ring wearing on him. But ultimately, he's the only one who could have done it this far. So fair dues, Frodo. But so, question I'm going to ask you now: is there anything that you wanted to know more about, or anything? So everything we've covered so far over the 2.5 films you've watched now, like, is there anything that you want to know more about in general?
Probably getting my head around Sauron and like the hierarchy thing.
Ooh, yeah.
Because that's still like all the names are just, they all sound the same to me.
Yeah, everyone. Well, like, especially when you get like, do you mean Sauron, Saruman, and that, or do you mean Sauron,
like,
Morgoth,
Morgoth, and like
Maya, Valar, Ainur,
riding the fell creatures and
the Nazgûl? Or do you mean like the hierarchy of the enemy?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because I understand like our side now.
Right. Yeah.
The good side.
Yeah.
So I want to understand them more, and also the person that lives in the Emerald City.
The Witch King of Angmar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, those are things we could definitely go into in more detail, like, if you were up for it, after we've done this. But yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, so next week would be the exciting conclusion. It's felt like 6 films. It's not. It's 3 films. They're just very fucking long because we're watching the extended edition.
I also want to find out what happens to Denethor.
Denethor, yeah, or Denethor, son of Icthelion. I am very looking forward to you finding out what happens to Denethor. He goes on, unbelievably, he actually goes on to become a carrot merchant.
Does he sell big ones or little ones?
I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, no, it'd be interesting. But yeah, that'll be next week. So should we wrap it up for now and say goodbye? I'm not going to say good night because you could be listening to this at any time of the day. But I'm going to say goodbye from me and have a good day wherever you are.
And I was going to say buenas noches, but on the but on the same sort of vein, I'll say adios.
Hasta mañana to all our Spanish listeners, of which there are fucking 0, because this is an English podcast. Right, and I think we should end it there. Goodbye, everybody.
Right.